Hey, congratulations on your new film, June Zero.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me
You know,
here.
no, thank you for speaking to us. This is such a riveting film that you actually wrote. So we have to hear it is where the original idea came from for June Zero.
Yeah, well, a very good question to start with. So, uh, Jake, the director, has some obsession in a way for World War II and the whole um, time that Israel has been kind of like being built and around the 60s. So he was reading a lot of material about that, and uh, uh, he read about an article about the oven that was built and used to take off the body of Eichmann after the execution, and he was completely enchanted by this also because it's the idea that in Israel they built a German oven was kind of like had this kind of ironic and this some sort of like this circle of violence that's going on and on. And he was truly curious, so he came to Israel and he started to do a research, a very long research, and had a lot of interviews and testimonies, and then he approached me and he asked me to write with him the script that was supposed to be only about the story of building the oven. But as we got along and read all the interviews and the testimonies, got deeper and deeper, we understood that it's actually some sort of a panoramic view on Israel at that time, and that we want to show few stories that will kind of like give us a vivid look on what it was then, and also show us the story of the Eichmann trial, not through the trial, but through the eyes of three characters who sort of like um, workers or workers in this kind of like big history event. And we were just we couldn't there was so many stories and so many elements that we couldn't just leave them outside. And this is how this film was born in a few paragraphs.
Now, of course, there are so many stories like you actually indicated. How did you narrow it down to these three characters for June Zero?
Yeah, it was a terrible decision making in a way, but we 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 thought about the meaning of the word of the theme testimony. This is the three characters that are in this film are three that wants to be recognized by history in some way, and we thought that this is a very a good path for us to start to see this period of time in Israel, because a lot of the Holocaust survivors that came to Israel uh, were pretty much ashamed and didn't want to talk, stay silent about what happened to them. They were embarrassed. They were afraid nobody would believe them. And the moment that the trial of Eichmann started, those people got a chance to tell their stories. And so and become part of history and sort of tell their truth. And we wanted to talk about this element of being part of history, of the testimony, of what it means to have a personal story, to have a film story, and to have historical truth. How those three elements go together. And so we picked the story through this made big theme that we had in mind for the film.
So how much liberty into fictionalizing the stories for to make it interesting on
Yeah.
film for yourself with these characters?
Yeah. So we there is some liberty that we took, but I have to tell you that I thought we will take more liberty, which means that the story was so vivid, so interacted with us, and then after that in the script itself, that we didn't do much. Of course, when you take a personal testimony and you try to make it cinematic, you have to do some changes. You have to change a little bit the board that you are playing with, but not much. So I have to say, don't don't get me, but around 80%, 85% of what you see actually happened.
So the production of this oven, did it actually happen as it is indicated in the film, or because it sound more exciting to be for us as audiences to be so concerned about whether the production of the oven actually makes it on time.
Yeah, there was a pressure of time because listen, they were waiting to see if the execution will get if he actually get this sentence of execution. It was not sure. And after that it came for, they had a small period of time because there was a lot of fear in Israel at that time, in the higher ups, that said that we can't wait too long for that, because then it will get more weight and some international concern, and it will be harder to execute. So there was really a time pressure, and also, and this is the film also indicates that they don't build ovens like that in Israel, because the Judaism does not very does not cremating the bodies. So it was a new thing, and yeah, they had to walk very fast, and they used um, a section of a German oven to build the oven that actually did it.
Now the young child character in this film, was he real historically, or you had to create it for the film just to create a different perspective?
So yeah, so I have to tell this. This is what was one of the astonishing thing. One of the testimonies was of this an old man who was saying that he was one of the workers in the factory that built the oven. But when we started to search and talked with other live people from the factory, or starting to read about that, there was no indication of a kid in a 13-year-old kid walking there. And everybody we asked said there was nothing like that existed at the time. And he is insisting that he was part of building the oven, and that he was left out of history because some misunderstanding. And we were so uh, enthusiastic about this thing, about this guy who wants this soul recognition, but there's no testimonies for him that he was there. So this is exactly what we were talking about when we were talking about the meaning of testimony, how powerful this thing is, and how important it is to a person to take his true story, or the story that he believed in, and make it part of history. And so I think when we understood that, we understood the movie itself altogether.
So did you believe his testimony, his story? Because you essentially immortalize his story into a film.
Well, the film asks the question, and I think it doesn't give a clear answer, and I don't have a clear answer. But when I heard this testimony, and when I tried to write this character, I had to believe that he's right. I had to, because then I would not write it as truthful as I want to. And part of me became close to this kid and his silent part in the moment of history. And I also looked about on myself, and I thought about myself sometimes when I do, I don't know, like I do something that I think is important, I want to be recognized. I want people to see that I was a part of something that was good, that gave some sort of meaning to people. So actually, when I do movies and when I write stories, I want them to be so important that they will be enhanced and that people will take them along. So I was so empathetic to him that I have to believe him. I had to believe him.
Tom, is your process in writing these stories always involve very, very deep research? Because it seems like a very long process.
Well, it was a very long process for sure. Sometimes it takes less, but when we went into this film, we understood that it was gonna take time to swim in this material and to build the narrative and the structure in a way that will be cinematic. So we knew that it's going to take time and that we will have to um, invest everything we have in it. I have to say it took less than what I expected. It was 1 year and a half of writing. And again, the most of the writing was what is not getting in the film, not what's in the film, because the film itself almost wrote itself in a way.
Now the date June 0, that's actually an actual date of history that you uncovered, or is that a common knowledge?
Well, it's a,
Because I didn't know that before.
yeah. So this was a newspaper. We see this newspaper in the movie, which was a very kind of like a very left wing, provocative magazine, and they invented this date, and this date was because the government didn't want to give um, the the press the actual date, so they will not be there and try to photograph it or try to write about it. They wanted to keep it as silent as possible. They just said June 0. That's the date that they gave, and this newspaper used this date when he wrote about the execution. He as a sort of an ironic dialogue with the government, and we were so thrilled by this idea, and I thought it's we thought it's capturing so much about what we were talking about in the film that we knew that this is the title of the film for sure.
Well said, well said. Tom, let me start wrapping things up with you. We've seen Holocaust movies or Holocaust stories so many times in this industry. Why is it so important to keep on making movies like this?
Yeah. So well, it's a Holocaust movie, I agree, but it actually happens after the Holocaust has ended in a way, and it's about the circumstances of the Holocaust. And Israel is like a circumstance of the Holocaust in so many ways. So it's a bit different from the regular Holocaust movie. But I think it's important to talk about this event because this is such a prominent event and it concerns humanity in every way. And we see now how it's easy to forget or um, to become a bit uh, apathic or indifferent for violence or for stuff that's going around the world. So this kind of pivotal moment in history needs to be talked about and seen as much as possible, so we as as human beings will never forget this.
Well said, well said. And you done that excellent on the storytelling for June 0. So Tom,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much for speaking to us about the June 0. And let's not forget, and people should actually watch this film. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, and go to see the film.